Captain John Mitchell stared out the viewport of the small scout ship and frowned. The massive space station loomed ahead, a gleaming wheel of metal and light against the blackness of space. This wasn't how their exploration mission was supposed to go. They were meant to chart the unexplored Sigma Quadrant, not get dragged before some galactic government they hadn't even known existed until 6 hours ago. "How's your uniform looking, Lieutenant?" he asked without turning. Lieutenant Samantha Reeves tugged at her collar and grimaced. "As good as it's going to get after 2 weeks in deep space, sir." She ran a hand through her short brown hair, attempting to tame it. "Do you think they'll really throw us in some alien jail?" Mitchell shook his head. "If they wanted us locked up, they wouldn't have bothered with the diplomatic reception. No, they want something else." Their ship shuddered as the station's tractor beam took control, guiding them toward a docking bay that looked far too elegant for their utilitarian scout vessel. The ship that had intercepted them, a sleek, crystalline craft piloted by beings with 4 arms and iridescent skin, had been similarly ornate. "Remember the briefing," Mitchell said. "First contact protocols, we represent all of humanity now." Reeves snorted. "Then humanity is doomed. You punched our last admiral, and I blew up a training facility." "That was an accident. The punch, or my explosion?" Mitchell finally cracked a smile. "Both, actually." The docking procedure completed with a soft thud, much gentler than Earth dockings. A melodic tone sounded through their craft, followed by a voice speaking perfect English. "Human vessel, your atmosphere has been synchronized. You may exit when ready. An escort awaits." Mitchell and Reeves exchanged glances. The aliens had clearly been studying Earth for some time if they already spoke the language. When the airlock opened, they were greeted by a being that resembled a cross between a bird and an insect. Nearly 7 feet tall with a chitinous exoskeleton and 4 wings folded neatly behind its back, it regarded them with multifaceted eyes that reflected their images like tiny mirrors. "I am Security Officer Valak," the being said, its mandibles clicking slightly between words. "Welcome to the Galactic Council hub." Mitchell stepped forward, standing straight despite being a full foot shorter than their host. "Captain John Mitchell and Lieutenant Samantha Reeves of the Earth Expeditionary Force. We were under the impression this region was unexplored." Valak's wings fluttered slightly, a gesture they would later learn indicated amusement. "Unexplored? By humans, perhaps. The Council has monitored your world for generations. Please follow me." As they walked through the station's corridors, both humans felt increasingly uncomfortable. The gravity was noticeably lighter than Earth standard, making each step feel like they might accidentally jump too high. The air was thin and sweet-smelling, forcing them to breathe more deeply. Most concerning were the looks they received from the station's inhabitants, a dizzying array of alien species who stopped and stared as they passed. "Why is everyone looking at us like we're about to attack them?" Reeves whispered. Valak overheard, its hearing apparently much more sensitive than they'd assumed. "You are from a Class 12 death world. Many find your kind concerning." "A what?" Mitchell asked. "Death world. A planet with environmental conditions considered extremely hazardous by Council standards. Earth's gravity, atmospheric pressure, temperature variations, indigenous predators and natural disasters create conditions that most Council species find uninhabitable. The fact that your species not only survived but thrived in such conditions makes you unusual." Mitchell processed this information. "So we're Space Orcs to you people?" Valak's translator seemed to struggle with the reference before the alien replied. "If that reference implies naturally dangerous beings, then yes. Your baseline physical capabilities exceed most Council species by concerning margins." They arrived at what appeared to be a waiting area, with furniture designed for various body types. A hovering drone offered them drinks in special containers. "Water," Valak explained, "filtered to human standards. Your metabolism requires significant hydration." A new alien approached, smaller, with pale blue skin and large liquid eyes. It wore flowing robes covered in symbols. "I am Protocol Officer Zenith," it said with a slight bow. "I will brief you on tomorrow's proceedings." Valak stepped back. "I will return when quarters are prepared. it said before departing with obvious relief. Zenith gestured to seats that looked like they might support human frames. Please rest. You must be finding our environment taxing. Mitchell sat cautiously, the furniture holding despite being lighter than anything on Earth. What exactly are tomorrow's proceedings? The Council will determine Earth's status. Some factions advocate for quarantine protocols, others for provisional membership. Reeves leaned forward. Quarantine? As in isolating Earth? Zenith's skin shifted color slightly, darkening. Some council members believe humans pose risks to galactic stability. Your species' history of conflict and your physical capabilities cause concern. That's absurd, Mitchell said. We've barely left our solar system. Yes, and many find that remarkable given your planet's conditions. You evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill you, developed technology despite constant warfare, and now seek to expand outward. The aggressive expansion pattern matches other predator species that caused problems historically. Mitchell fell silent, processing the implications. Earth wasn't unknown, it was feared. As Zenith continued explaining council procedures, Reeves noticed a group of officials whispering while looking their way. Her enhanced hearing, the result of military augmentations, picked up fragments of conversation never meant for human ears. Definitely cancel their appearance. Security risk too great. Counselor Draz insists on containment protocols. She nudged Mitchell and subtly indicated the group. He gave an almost imperceptible nod, understanding her warning. Later, as Zenith was showing them holographic maps of the station, a tall crystalline being approached, several officials followed in its wake. Ambassador Lorex, Zenith said, suddenly deferential. These are the human representatives. The crystalline being studied them with eyes like polished amethysts. Captain Mitchell, Lieutenant Reeves, I am Earth's assigned provisional ambassador. The situation has complicated. Mitchell stood, maintaining careful control of his movements after noticing how everyone flinched when he moved quickly. What's changed, Ambassador? Certain council factions have raised security concerns about tomorrow's meeting. They've proposed voting without your testimony. Reeves crossed her arms. They want to decide Earth's fate without even letting us speak? Ambassador Lorex's crystalline surface reflected light in patterns that seemed to indicate distress. There is significant fear. Humans combine physical capabilities, aggressive instincts, and technological innovation in ways the Council finds unpredictable. Just this morning, your ship's analysis revealed your bones are reinforced with material stronger than most Council construction materials. Mitchell stepped closer, noting how Lorex's assistants backed away. Ambassador, Earth deserves representation. We're not here to threaten anyone. I understand, Lorex said. But after reviewing your species' history, many council members believe humans are too dangerous for normal diplomatic integration. Your capacity for violence and compassion, Reeves interrupted. You can't judge us by our physical capabilities alone. A subtle tone sounded, and Zenith looked at a device on its wrist. Your quarters are prepared. We should continue this discussion there, away from public areas. As they followed their escorts, Mitchell and Reeves exchanged meaningful glances. They had trained for first contact, but never expected to be feared before they'd even had a chance to speak. In the quiet of their assigned quarters, Reeves finally spoke what they were both thinking. Sir, if they vote without hearing us, Earth could be quarantined before we even get a chance to defend ourselves. Mitchell nodded grimly. Then, we'll need to make sure we're heard, Lieutenant. One way or another. Mitchell paced the guest quarters, each step lighter than it would be on Earth. The room was luxurious by human standards, with flowing water features and living plants that seemed to respond to movement. But the beauty couldn't hide the fact that they were essentially prisoners. They've been watching us for decades, he said, studying us like animals without ever saying hello. Reeves sat cross-legged on the floor, having found the beds too soft to be comfortable. She was dismantling and reassembling her communication device, a nervous habit from her military training. Did you notice how they all keep their distance? She asked. Like we might attack at any moment. Wouldn't you be scared of someone who could break your bones by accident? Mitchell replied. To them, we're monsters from a nightmare world. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime. The door slid open to reveal Zenith carrying what appeared to be clothing. The council has scheduled your audience for tomorrow's session, the blue-skinned alien said. These garments are adapted for human comfort while meeting diplomatic standards. Mitchell accepted the folded garments. They were lightweight and shimmered slightly under the lights. Will we be allowed to actually speak at this audience? Zenith's skin rippled with colors. Ambassador Lorex has secured you 5 minutes to address the council directly. I must warn you that Councillor Draz has gathered significant support for quarantine measures. 5 minutes to decide the fate of our entire planet, Reeves muttered. It is more than most new species receive, Zenith said. The council rarely convenes full sessions for single-world species. The alien hesitated, then added more quietly. There is to be a tour of the hub facilities before your audience. I suggested it might help ease concerns if other representatives could observe you in a controlled setting. After Zenith left, Mitchell examined the quarters more carefully. They're probably listening to everything we say. Reeves nodded and continued working on her device. After several minutes, she held it up with a small smile. Signal jammer, she whispered. Short range, but should give us some privacy. Once activated, both humans relaxed slightly. What's our play here? Reeves asked. If they've already decided we're too dangerous, 5 minutes of talking won't change their minds. Mitchell sat down across from her. We need allies. Find the species that might benefit from association with dangerous humans. Frontier worlds, maybe, or those who've had security problems. And if that fails? He didn't answer directly. Make sure your emergency beacon is functional. If things go south, Earth needs to know what happened to us. The next morning they dressed in the provided garments. The fabric adjusted to their body temperature and seemed to enhance rather than restrict movement. Zenith arrived to escort them on their tour, accompanied by 2 floating drones. These will record your movements for council security, the protocol officer explained. Please try to move slowly and telegraph your actions. The hub was even more impressive in the station's equivalent of daylight. Vast open spaces connected, different sections with gravity and atmosphere shifting subtly between zones to accommodate different species. Gardens with plants from 100 worlds provided both beauty and air filtration. Other beings watched the humans from a distance. Some appeared curious, others frightened. A group of small furry aliens scurried away when Mitchell glanced in their direction. The observation deck provides the best view of the station, Zenith said, leading them to a large window overlooking the hub's central axis. Mitchell looked out at the spinning structure. How many species are represented here? The council includes over 300 member species with approximately 70 having permanent embassies on the hub, Zenith replied. Many come from worlds you would find uninhabitable, gas giants, water worlds, low-gravity moons. A commotion nearby drew their attention. A container had slipped from a transport drone and was falling toward a group of small aliens. Without thinking, Reeves lunged forward and caught it one-handed before it could hit anyone. The container, which would have been heavy for most species, was manageable in Earth's gravity but nearly weightless here. The ease with which she handled it caused a ripple of gasps and rapid movement as nearby aliens backed away. I'm sorry, Reeves said, setting the container down gently. I didn't mean to frighten anyone. Zenith's color had paled significantly. Your reflexes are remarkable. Most species would not have perceived the danger in time, let alone responded so quickly. Mitchell stepped closer to Reeves, noticing how everyone gave them an even wider berth now. On Earth, we look out for each other. It's instinct. Predator instinct, someone murmured loudly enough to hear. The tour continued, but the mood had changed. News of the incident spread quickly through the hub, and larger security drones now shadowed their movements. They visited cultural exhibits, technical displays, and finally the diplomatic wing where Ambassador Lorex waited. Your audience preparations should begin, Lorex said. The Security Council has requested additional containment measures during your presentation. Containment? Mitchell asked. We're not diseases. No, but after the incident in the Commons area, The crystalline being's surface flickered with light patterns. The Council fears your physical capabilities. Lieutenant Reeves demonstrated reaction speeds that exceed most Council security forces. She caught a falling box. Mitchell said flatly. With one hand, without apparent effort, after moving faster than our sensors could properly track, Lorax countered. You must understand how this appears to species that evolved on worlds with half of Earth's gravity, or less. They were escorted to a preparation chamber adjacent to the Council Hall. Through a view screen, they could see the vast amphitheater filling with representatives. In the center stood a small platform surrounded by a faintly shimmering field. A containment barrier, Zenith explained. It will allow sound to pass through while ensuring physical separation. Reeves examined her reflection in a polished surface, straightening her diplomatic garments. They're putting us in a cage. It's standard procedure for species with unknown capabilities, Zenith said, though its color patterns suggested discomfort with the situation. As they waited, Mitchell noticed Zenith receiving a message that caused the alien's colors to swirl anxiously. Is there a problem? He asked. Counselor Draz has moved to modify the agenda. Your speaking time may be reduced further. Zenith hesitated, then lowered its voice. I should not say this, but Draz has powerful allies among the Security Council. They fear what humanity represents, a physically superior species with rapid technological advancement. Some believe it would be safer if Earth remained isolated until humanity has matured past its aggressive tendencies. Mitchell and Reeves exchanged glances. How long would this isolation last? Reeves asked. The standard quarantine period for potentially disruptive species is 5,000 years, Zenith replied. The humans stood in shocked silence. A chime sounded, indicating the council session was beginning. On the view screen, they watched as a tall crystalline being, different from Lorax with sharp edges and deep red coloration, took the central podium. High Counselor Vex, Zenith explained. They will open proceedings before calling you forward. Mitchell squared his shoulders and gave Reeves a determined look. Remember the plan. Find allies, make our case, and no sudden movements. And if they don't listen, she asked quietly. His expression hardened. Then we make sure Earth knows exactly what kind of neighborhood we've moved into. The council chamber was the largest room Mitchell had ever seen. Curved tiers rose in all directions, filled with hundreds of different alien species. Some floated in special tanks, others perched on oddly shaped seats, and a few appeared to be made of living crystals similar to Ambassador Lorax. The air itself seemed to shimmer with different atmospheric bubbles to accommodate various breathing requirements. Mitchell and Reeves were led to the central platform. The containment field around it was barely visible except for a slight distortion of light, like heat rising from hot pavement. When the field activates, please remain centered on the platform, whispered Zenith before retreating to a position near the entrance. High Counselor Vex rose from an elevated podium. Their crystalline body caught the light, sending rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. This council session will now address the matter of Earth classification and status. Determination, Vex announced, their voice translating simultaneously into hundreds of languages through some unseen technology. We have representatives from this newly contacted world present. A murmur went through the assembly. Mitchell noticed many representatives leaning forward to get a better look at the humans. For the record, Vex continued, Earth has been classified as a Class 12 death world, one of only 17 such planets known to harbor sapient life. The human representatives will be permitted to address the council briefly before we vote on their status. A different alien stood up. This one had 6 limbs and dark scales that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Counselor Draz has the floor, Vex acknowledged. Before the humans speak, this council should review the facts, Draz said. Our observation posts have documented Earth's development for over 200 years. The species shows concerning patterns of territorial aggression, resource consumption, and technological weaponization. A large screen appeared in the center of the chamber, displaying images of Earth. Mitchell recognized scenes of warfare, environmental disasters, and weapons testing. The images were clearly selected to portray humanity in the most threatening light possible. These beings evolved on a planet where constant competition and violence were necessary for survival. Draz continued. Their bodies are dense with muscle and reinforced bone. Their endurance exceeds that of most council species. A human can pursue prey for days without rest, can survive injuries that would kill most sentient beings, and can adapt to environmental extremes that would be fatal to many in this chamber. More images appeared. Athletes performing feats of strength, surgeons performing operations, soldiers training in harsh conditions. Most concerning is their psychology, Draz said. Humans form intense pack bonds and will fight to the death to protect unrelated members of their species. They tame predator species for companionship. They create art and entertainment that glorifies combat. Their history is a continuous cycle of warfare punctuated by brief periods of peace. Mitchell clenched his fists but kept his face neutral. Beside him, Reeves stood at parade rest, her military training evident in her perfect posture. The Security Council recommends immediate quarantine protocols, Draz concluded. Observation posts should be maintained, but no further contact permitted until humans have demonstrated at least 5 centuries of global peace. Another alien stood, this one with multiple eye stalks and a body that seemed to flow rather than move. The Science Directorate disagrees. Human adaptability could provide valuable insights. Limited contact under controlled conditions would benefit the Council. The debate continued for nearly 20 minutes with various factions arguing about Earth's status. Mitchell noticed that almost no one argued for full integration. The disagreement was merely about the degree of isolation to impose. Finally, Vex raised a crystalline appendage. We will now hear from the human representatives. The containment field around their platform hummed more loudly. Mitchell stepped forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien eyes upon him. Members of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice steady. I am Captain John Mitchell of Earth. While we appreciate your concern for galactic security, I must object to the portrayal of humanity as nothing more than dangerous predators. He gestured to the screen, which still showed images of human warfare. Yes, we have fought wars. We have made terrible mistakes. But we have also created art, music, literature, and philosophy. We have developed medicine that extends life. We have preserved species on the brink of extinction. We have sent messages of peace into the cosmos, hoping to find others like ourselves. Mitchell could see his words having some effect. Several council members leaned forward with interest. Humans are products of our harsh world, yes. We are stronger in some ways because we had to be. But that same evolutionary pressure gave us something else, the capacity for extraordinary cooperation and compassion. On Earth, strangers will risk their lives to save someone they've never met. We build global systems to share knowledge freely across our planet. We celebrate our differences while seeking common ground. A soft murmur ran through the chamber. Mitchell couldn't tell if it was positive or negative. We don't ask for special treatment, he continued. We ask only for the opportunity to prove ourselves as worthy partners in this galactic community. Judge us by our actions moving forward, not by selected moments from our past. As Mitchell finished, Reeves stepped forward. If I may add something? She asked. Vex hesitated, then nodded. You fear our physical capabilities? Reeves said bluntly. I understand that, but strength without wisdom is useless. Earth has learned this lesson repeatedly. The strongest nations are not always the ones that survive. The most aggressive species are not always the ones that thrive. Humans have learned to channel our strength into protection rather than domination. She looked directly at Counselor Draz. You showed images of our soldiers. Yes, we train for combat. But those same soldiers are often the first to volunteer for disaster relief, to build shelters after storms, to deliver medical supplies to remote regions. Our capacity for violence exists alongside our capacity for self-sacrifice. Before Reeves could continue, the lights in the chamber flickered. The giant screen displaying Earth images went dark, then displayed a series of symbols that Mitchell didn't recognize. Vex stood up sharply. Security breach, they announced. Council session suspended. But instead of an orderly exit, chaos erupted. The translation systems failed, leaving hundreds of species suddenly unable to communicate. The containment field around Mitchell and Reeves wavered, then disappeared entirely. Through the confusion, Mitchell spotted movement, a group of figures, in dark uniforms moving purposefully toward the High Council platform, where Vex and the senior council members were gathered. "Reeves," he said quietly, nudging her. 3 o'clock. That doesn't look like regular security. Reeves narrowed her eyes, her enhanced vision focusing on the distant figures. "They're armed," she whispered, "and heading straight for the council leaders." Mitchell made a split-second decision. "We can't just watch this happen." Around them, council members were panicking, some fleeing toward exits while others huddled in groups. No one was paying attention to the two humans anymore. "You know what this will look like, right?" Reeves asked, already loosening her formal garments to allow better movement. "Two Deathworlders charging through the council chamber during a crisis?" Mitchell nodded grimly. "Can't be helped. If there's an attack on the council while we're here, guess who gets blamed?" They exchanged a brief glance, years of military training communicating volumes without words. Then, without further hesitation, they leapt from the platform into the chaos of the council chamber. Mitchell hit the floor outside their containment platform and rolled smoothly to absorb the impact. Even in the lower gravity, he moved with precision born from years of military training. Beside him, Reeves landed in a crouch, her eyes already tracking the armed figures moving toward the council leaders. "I count 6 hostiles," she said quietly, armed with some kind of energy weapons. The chamber was in chaos. Emergency lights pulsed with a red glow, casting strange shadows across the panicked assembly. Most council members were fleeing toward the exits, while others huddled behind their seats. The security drones that had been monitoring the humans now floated aimlessly, their systems apparently disabled by whatever had caused the power disruption. "We need to reach the High Council platform," Mitchell said. "Can you see Vex?" Reeves scanned the raised area where the crystalline leader had been seated. Still there, with about 5 other council members. They're surrounded by some kind of security barrier, but those attackers are trying to get through. Mitchell nodded and began moving forward, weaving through the crowd, in the lower gravity. Each step carried him further than expected, but he quickly adjusted his movements. The aliens scattered before him, clearly terrified of the human moving purposefully through their midst. Reeves took a different route, using her enhanced agility to leap onto one of the curved tiers and run along it above the crowd. From her vantage point, she could see the entire chamber. "Mitchell, they're setting up some kind of device," she called out, her military-enhanced voice cutting through the noise. "Looks like they're trying to disable the security barrier around the council leaders." An alien with tentacle-like limbs grabbed Mitchell's arm, babbling in a language he couldn't understand. Without the translation systems, communication was impossible. Mitchell gently but firmly removed the tentacle and continued forward. The attackers had noticed the humans now. 2 of them turned, raising their weapons. Energy beams flashed toward Mitchell, but he was already diving behind a large seat. The beams hit the seat, scorching its surface but not penetrating. "Reeves, I need a distraction," Mitchell called. "Out." Without hesitation, Reeves grabbed a decorative object from the tier she was standing on, something that looked like a ceremonial staff, and hurled it with perfect accuracy. It struck one of the attackers on the head, sending them sprawling. The other attackers turned toward her, momentarily forgetting Mitchell. That was all the opening he needed. Mitchell sprinted forward, covering the distance to the nearest attacker, in seconds. The alien, a tall, thin being with 6 limbs similar to Counselor Draz, swung its weapon toward him, but Mitchell was already inside its guard. With a precise strike learned in Earth's higher gravity, Mitchell knocked the weapon aside and followed with a sweeping kick that took the attacker's legs out from under them. The alien went down hard, clearly unprepared for the human's strength and speed. Around the chamber, those council members who hadn't fled watched in horrified fascination as the human moved with what must have seemed like superhuman abilities. Reeves, meanwhile, had leapt down from the tier and was engaged with 2 other attackers. Her movements were fluid and efficient. each strike precisely targeted to disarm rather than seriously injure. One attacker swung a blade toward her face, but she caught the wrist and twisted, using the alien's own momentum to flip them onto their back. "We need to secure that device," she shouted to Mitchell. The device sat on the floor near the security barrier surrounding the council leaders. It was blinking rapidly, obviously counting down to something. Two attackers stood guard over it, weapons raised. Mitchell saw Valak, the avian security officer who had first greeted them, trying to approach from another angle. The officer's wings were spread in an intimidating display, but it was clear he was hesitating, unsure how to engage the armed attackers. Making a split-second decision, Mitchell grabbed the weapon he had taken from the fallen attacker and slid it across the floor toward Valak. "Cover me," he shouted, hoping the security officer would understand his intention if not his words. Valak seemed to comprehend. He picked up the weapon and aimed it at the attackers guarding the device, forcing them to take cover. That was the opening Mitchell needed. He sprinted toward the device, each bound covering several meters in the low gravity. One of the attackers tried to intercept him, but Mitchell used his momentum to simply power through, knocking the alien aside with his shoulder. Reaching the device, Mitchell saw a complex panel of symbols he didn't understand. Without hesitation, he grabbed the entire thing and yanked it away from the barrier. Warning lights flashed across its surface. "Reeves, what do I do with this thing?" he called out. Reeves finished subduing her opponent with a precise strike to what she hoped was a vulnerable area. The alien collapsed, unconscious. "Throw it up," she shouted back. "Get it away from everyone!" Mitchell understood immediately. Using his earthborn strength, he hurled the device straight up toward the high ceiling of the chamber, putting everything he had into the throw. In the station's reduced gravity, the device soared much higher than it would have on Earth, disappearing into the shadows near the ceiling. Seconds later, a blinding flash filled the chamber, followed by a shock wave that Mitchell felt more than heard. The blast was contained far above the council members, though debris rained down harmlessly. In the aftermath, Mitchell found himself standing protectively in front of the security barrier, facing down the remaining attackers. They hesitated, clearly reevaluating their plan now that the humans had interfered. Beside him, Reeves appeared seemingly out of nowhere, having vaulted over several tiers to reach his position. She stood ready, her stance perfect despite the unfamiliar gravity. The lead attacker, the one who resembled Counselor Draz, made a sound that needed no translation. It was a command to retreat. The remaining attackers began backing away toward a side exit. "Should we pursue?" Reeves asked quietly. Before Mitchell could answer, the security systems came back online. Drones swarmed into the chamber, weapons deployed. The translation system crackled back to life. "Security breach in progress. All personnel remain where you are." The automated message blared across the chamber in multiple languages. The security barrier around the council leaders flickered, then disappeared. High Counselor Vex stepped forward, their crystalline form catching the emergency lights. They stared at the humans with an unreadable expression. Mitchell and Reeves stood their ground, breathing heavily from the exertion, but otherwise unharmed. Around them, the remaining council members were emerging from hiding, all eyes fixed on the two humans who had just demonstrated exactly why their species was considered so dangerous. "Captain Mitchell, Lieutenant Reeves," Vex said, their voice amplified by the restored systems. "You have just confirmed everything Counselor Draz warned this assembly about regarding human capabilities." Mitchell straightened his posture. "With respect, Counselor, we just prevented an attack on your leadership." "So it would appear," Vex said slowly. "Though how convenient that such an attack occurred during your presentation, giving you the perfect opportunity to demonstrate your combat prowess to the entire council." "You think we arranged this?" Reeves asked incredulously. Before Vex could answer, security drones surrounded one of the fallen attackers and removed their helmet. Gasps echoed through the chamber as the face was revealed. "That's Counselor Draz's aide," Zenith said, stepping forward from where he had been hidden. "I recognize him from the Security Council meetings." All eyes turned to where Counselor Draz had been seated, but the counselor was nowhere to be seen. Silence filled the council chamber as security drones swarmed through the space. The fallen attackers were being removed, and medical teams attended to injured council members. Mitchell and Reeves remained where they stood, now surrounded by a ring of security officers, including Valik, whose wings were partially extended in what appeared to be a mixture of caution and respect. High Counselor Vex approached the humans slowly, each step deliberate. Their crystalline body reflected the emergency lights, creating patterns that shifted with each movement. "It appears we owe you our gratitude," Vex said, the words clearly difficult for them. "Security has confirmed that the device you intercepted was designed to disrupt our molecular cohesion. For many council members, including myself, that would have been fatal." Mitchell nodded stiffly. "We acted on instinct. Where we come from, you don't stand by when lives are in danger." "Yes, your instincts," Vex repeated. "That is precisely what concerns many of us. Your first instinct was to engage in physical combat." "Our first instinct was to protect," Reeves corrected. "The method was determined by the threat." Another council member floated forward, the multi-eyed being who had spoken in favor of scientific exchange during the debate. The humans demonstrated remarkable restraint. They disabled the attackers without killing any of them, despite clearly having the capability to do so. Vex made a sound like crystals chiming together, perhaps their version of a sigh. "True. And the evidence linking Counselor Draz to this attack is growing. His quarters have been searched and contain communications with several fringe groups who oppose expanding council membership." "He was setting us up," Mitchell said, understanding, dawning. "He arranged the attack to happen during our presentation. If we didn't act, the council leaders would be injured or killed. If we did act, you would demonstrate the very danger he warned about," Zenith finished, stepping forward. "Either outcome would support his argument for Earth's quarantine." Vex gestured, and the security officers surrounding the humans moved back slightly. "The emergency session is suspended while we investigate this matter. I must ask you both to return to your quarters until we have concluded our inquiry." As they were escorted from the chamber, Mitchell noticed the way the remaining council members watched them. With fear, yes, but also with something new. Perhaps respect, perhaps curiosity, perhaps both. In their quarters, they found Ambassador Lorex waiting for them. The crystalline diplomat's surface patterns were more active than they had seen before. "That was both the bravest and most foolish thing I have witnessed in my 300 years of diplomatic service," Lorex said without preamble. "We couldn't just stand there," Mitchell replied, sinking into a chair. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him tired. "No, I suppose humans couldn't," Lorex agreed. "And therein lies both the problem and perhaps the solution to your situation." Reeves looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "The Council fears what humans represent. Beings evolved under conditions that made you stronger, faster, and more durable than most species. But today you demonstrated something else. The willingness to use those abilities to protect, not just to fight." Lorex's patterns shifted to deeper blues and purples. "It will take time for the full investigation to conclude, but I've received word that Counselor Draz has been apprehended attempting to leave the station. Several of his associates have already confessed to planning the attack." Mitchell leaned forward. "And what does that mean for Earth's status?" "That remains to be decided," Lorex said. "But the Council operates on precedent, and there is now a very public precedent of humans acting to protect Council members at risk to themselves." They spent the next 6 hours in their quarters, occasionally receiving updates from Zenith or Lorex. The station had been placed on high alert, with security increased throughout the hub. Finally, a formal summons arrived. They were to return to the council chamber for a special session. This time, when they entered the chamber, there was no containment field around their speaking platform. The chamber was less crowded, with only senior representatives present. High Counselor Vex presided. From the central podium, Captain John Mitchell and Lieutenant Samantha Reeves of Earth, Vex began formally. "This council has reviewed the events of today's session and the evidence regarding Counselor Draz's conspiracy. We have reached several conclusions." Mitchell stood at attention, Reeves beside him in the same posture. "First, Counselor Draz and his conspirators will face justice for their actions. Second, The attack they orchestrated has been officially recognized as an attempt to manipulate council proceedings. And third, Vex paused, their crystalline surface shifting colors. We must address Earth's status. The chamber was completely silent. It is the decision of this council that Earth will be granted provisional membership status, with a probationary period of 50 years rather than the standard 20. Murmurs ran through the assembly, but Vex continued. During this period, human representatives will be permitted on council stations and member worlds, but with security protocols appropriate to beings from a Class 12 death world. A permanent ambassador will be assigned to Earth to facilitate integration. Mitchell felt relief wash over him. Not perfect, but far better than quarantine. Furthermore, Vex added, the Defense Committee has expressed interest in consulting with human representatives regarding security protocols. It seems your unique perspectives might prove valuable. After the session concluded, Mitchell and Reeves were escorted to the docking bay where their scout ship waited. Their original mission parameters were obsolete now. They would be returning to Earth with news of humanity's new place in the galactic community. As they prepared to board, a small group of aliens approached them, species they hadn't seen before, with tougher-looking exteriors than most council members. Captain Mitchell, one said, its voice translated through a small device. I represent the Frontier Alliance, worlds on the edges of council space. We face challenges that the core worlds do not understand. Mitchell looked at them curiously. What kind of challenges? Resource raiders, hostile non-council species, environments that the pampered core worlders find unthinkable. The alien's mouth parts clicked together. We watched what you did in the council chamber. Some of us believe an alliance with humans might be mutually beneficial. Reeves raised an eyebrow. The council might not approve of separate arrangements. The alien made a gesture that might have been a shrug. The council is distant and help is often too late. We need allies who understand survival, not just protocol. Before they could discuss further, Zenith approached to complete their departure. Procedures. The Frontier representatives moved away, but not before one slipped a data chip into Mitchell's hand. Consider it, the alien said quietly. Not everyone fears what you are. As their ship detached from the station, Mitchell and Reeves watched the massive hub recede into the distance. So, Reeves said after a while, we terrified a galactic government, stopped an assassination, secured Earth's membership, and picked up some potential allies. Not bad for a first contact. Mitchell looked down at the data chip in his hand. I think the galaxy just discovered that Deathworlders have their uses. Reeves smiled slightly. Should make the next council meeting interesting. If they let us attend, Mitchell replied. Then he grinned. Though I'm not sure they could stop us if we decided to crash it again. As their ship accelerated toward the jump point that would take them back to Earth, Mitchell couldn't help but wonder how humanity would shape the galaxy, and how the galaxy would shape humanity in return. One thing was certain, the universe had just become a much larger, more complicated place. And humanity, it seemed, would have a place in it after all.